Okay, our next speaker is Maureen Doran. She specializes in integrative nutrition, a science-based food as medicine therapy, prevention and treatment of chronic and degenerative diseases. She has a bachelor's degree in foods and nutrition. She advocates food first, recommending whole, clean foods that come from nature, strengthen and heal the body. When foods cannot provide all the nutrients necessary for optimal health, evidence-based supplements are utilized. She also maintains a teaching practice in yoga and a mindfulness-based meditation, providing therapeutic instruction to both individuals and groups, blending nutrition, yoga, and meditation. Maureen has developed a transformational mind-body program for weight management. This refreshing, non-diet approach provides freedom from compulsive, destructive eating patterns and supports a happier, healthier relationship with food and body. Please welcome Maureen Doran.
Thank you, Amy. It's really nice to be here today, to have the opportunity to talk to you about mindfulness. So we're going to do this in a fairly casual way. And as Chef Marshall was just talking about, nourishment for the body is incredibly important, but so is nourishment for the mind. And unfortunately, in our American culture, we live in America, we live in a very fragmented culture. We are taught to splinter our attention many different ways at one time. In fact, some of you might feel the need to check your email even right now, or your voicemail, or texting, or you're thinking about, what am I going to do about dinner today? Or I wonder how so-and-so is doing, my child is doing, where do I need to be next? Our culture really inculcates this, and it's a lovely thing to be able to splinter one's attention, to be able to give attention to many different areas. The problem, though, and you may all have this experience in one way or another, the problem is that over time, because we're taking 100% of our attention and putting it here, and here, we're never really at any one place at one time. And over time, we have seen really declining levels of engagement at the clinic where I practice, which is Penny George Institute for Health and Healing on the Abbott Northwestern campus. We are the integrative medicine clinic, so we see a lot of folks for whom stress has been a major contributor to whatever their condition is, whether it's migraines or IBS or skin issues or allergies or hypertension, cancer. We see a fair amount of cancer. All of these conditions begin with, probably a term you've been hearing a lot lately, inflammation. Well, guess what? Our stressful life it's a pro-inflammatory life. Not even just the normal day-to-day stuff, but we often have what we call, bigger stressors in our life that seem to come out of left field. Loss of a job, maybe a divorce, maybe a car accident, or a diagnosis that's, a fairly critical diagnosis. And because of this fragmented, mouse wheel lifestyle that we have, when those big things come up, we don't have the capacity to respond to them. So it's coming at us from all angles. And I would like to propose that mindfulness can be a potent medicine for our everyday stressors that we experience, as well as to help build resilience or build stability or build stamina So that when these things come through our lives, these things that we can't, that we didn't see coming, that we have the capacity to respond to them in a different way. Mindfulness is potent, potent medicine. And there's so much research that's being done right now around mindfulness that we know that it definitely benefits those who are dealing with breast cancer, IBS, hypertension, high blood pressure, migraine headaches. These are research studies that have been done in all of this, in all of these areas. Greater stability and happiness in one's life. Oh, and one that I almost forgot to mention, which is increasing our immunity. Stress over time begins to ravage our immune system. Mindfulness can actually boost the immune system. So not only does it help us to deal with daily stressors, but it also helps us to build a capacity so that, as I said, when these big things come along, we can work with them better. There's actually a space that we've created within ourselves to be able to respond instead of the old knee-jerk reacting. This is what mindfulness can do for us. The Buddhists were the ones who have done the most over time work around mindfulness, a couple thousand years, but really you will find these practices in all the major religions. So that mindfulness doesn't belong to any one religion. It's not a religious practice, but it can certainly support your spirituality, whatever that may be, or support your well-being. The Buddhists sometimes refer to these, to just, taking a human form, just being born in this life, and to all of the sufferings that are in this life. The Buddhists refer to those as the first arrow, right? So this is that accident that came out of nowhere, this bankruptcy, this loss of a loved one. These things happen in our lives just by taking birth. You can pretty well assured that we're going to go through losses. Buddhists refer to that as the first arrow. It hurts. It is a form of suffering. But then there's the second arrow. And the second arrow is the one that we inflict on ourselves through the way we react to that first arrow. This is something that we can control. Cannot control life losses, but the way we react or respond to them, we've got some room around this. And our society is a fairly reactive society. And mindfulness helps us to respond in a more stable, calm, clear, focused, concentrative way. So the studies that have been done around mindfulness, a lot of them have been done right across the river at UW-Madison. Richard Davidson has done a lot of actually measuring the brain. So there's this part of the brain which we call an executive functioning part of the brain. It's a prefrontal cortex. And over time, little stressors or big stressors can really begin to shut down that executive functioning of the brain so that we feel more scattered, we feel less focused, we feel more distracted, we feel like something's just missing or something's not right. So when the executive functioning of the brain begins to shut down with a lot of stress, continued stress, or this fragmented life that we lead, when it begins to shut down, the limbic system begins to get engaged. Well, the limbic system is when we shop too much, eat too much, drink too much, gamble too much, have sex too much, and that begins to take over, that more primitive part of the brain. So we have sort of this double whammy in that we lose the ability to really think clearly and feel whole, begin to feel very fragmented. And then we also have this primitive part of the brain taking over. The beauty of it is that there is an antidote to this condition that we all suffer from in one way or another. Maybe you suffer a lot, maybe you suffer a little. And those of us who have family history, I have a very strong family history of anxiety. So I think it's either in our environment or in our DNA. I'm really not sure which one. And for those who suffer from anxiety or depression, these experiences are exacerbated. Sometimes it's referred to as like a water cooler of resilience. So we each have our water cooler, and you have these stressors, so you're drawing off the water, and then it bubbles back up, and we're A-okay. But for a lot of us, either we're so depleted, or we may have a family history of these inability to really bounce back as some others might. And so that cooler is nearly empty. The beauty of it is that mindfulness at any time can begin to bring the water cooler back up. At any time in life. So Susan was talking earlier about change to chill as being a great service for your kids. And I would propose that mindfulness training, however you decide to pursue it, and we'll talk about avenues for doing that in a moment, is going to help you. And once we begin developing these practices for ourselves, there is a ripple effect. Other people feel it, including your children. And some of these mindfulness practices can be done for as little as 30, 60 seconds. So there's 84,600 seconds in a 24-hour period. Each one of those, at least that we're awake, is an opportunity to practice mindfulness, either formally, and formally just means we've set time aside to do some of these practices, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But we can also do practices on the fly. You can do practices when you're washing your hands, coming into this moment is what mindfulness is. So often, we're dragging around the old bones from the past, or we're worried about the future, right? Or we're scurrying from point A to point B, arriving with no idea how we got there. And as I said, this leads to a level of feeling dissatisfied with life, disengaged, just like something's not right. And we begin to see these chemicals in the body from this chronic stress that many of us are experiencing. We begin to see the ravages of that. So primitive man could outrun the saber-toothed tiger. When the big stress came, you either outran it, you fought it, you played dead. Flight, fight, or freeze. One or the other. And then the crisis was over in a short time, or you were. One or the other. Well, as I've kind of been saying all through this, our stressors today are much more chronic, and they're much more ubiquitous, I guess I would say. So it is the traffic jam, it is the appointment, it is the, whatever these small stressors are that bother you. So mindfulness practices really help us to restore balance, really help us to replete from these everyday stressors. So you've probably heard that when we experience stress over time, cortisol levels go up. That's a stress hormone. And neurotransmitters, epinephrine, norepinephrine, we see those as well. And a day-to-day, when this goes on day-to-day and the body doesn't have a chance to outrun it, body doesn't have a chance to fight it, doesn't have a chance to rebalance, we begin to see this wear and tear on the body, and in our clinic, we see it a lot. So we do offer mindfulness programs as not only an antidote, but as powerful medicine to help work with our everyday lives. Mindfulness, simply said, is being here now. Most of us are elsewhere in most of our day. It's being here in this moment, in the present, intentionally, paying attention, non-judgmentally, and that's the key. A lot of our life, too, is we spend in judgment. Like this, don't like that, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And a lot of that kind of clouds our ability to see clearly. Now, certainly, we need to know right from wrong. We need to make decisions. But oftentimes, we're so busy in the thoughts in the mind, one cascading on top of the other, that it's very difficult for us to see clearly. And as I said before, our culture really supports that kind of a lifestyle. Go, 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 go. So just as a little experiment, this is not a formal mindfulness practice. Let's just do a little experiment. So there's no need to sit any special way or have your eyes open or closed. It's really whatever you want. But for the next 60 seconds or so, we're just going to sit quietly in silence and notice what's going on. Now, it probably doesn't take very long before the mind gets carried away with thought. And if this happens to you, just notice. Great. Did anyone have that experience of the thought system, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da? Raise your hand if you did. Lots and lots. Yes. This is a sign of success. This is a sign that you too can be a meditator. Oftentimes we think, well, I can't meditate, and meditate is a powerful form of mindfulness, as is yoga, as is mindful eating, as is mindful walking. All of these things can be powerful mindfulness practices because they do bring us to this moment, which is important because this is really the only moment we have. Past is gone, future isn't here yet. This is the only moment we have. And if we can't be in this moment, then how are we going to change? How are we going to improve our lives? We'll just keep doing the same things over and over again. So if you notice that there was a flood of thought, that's a really good thing. That's a sign of success because it shows that you have that awareness, that you do have that quality of mindfulness, that you can actually see what's happening in this moment. So through mindfulness training, we cultivate these practices, and this can be a really potent form of medicine. It can enhance your life in ways that you maybe never even saw coming. So what we have today in terms of resources, we have a list of places where you could consider a mindfulness program, which would include primarily meditation, primarily mindfulness meditation, teaching us to be in this moment for whatever this moment offers. But yoga is an excellent form of mindfulness. In our training, we include both meditation and yoga and mindful eating and mindful walking, a number of practices, formal and informal. But you have a resource list, as you also have a postcard about this size for Headspace. Because we're all really busy and we don't have a lot of time to dedicate to us, maybe to going somewhere and learning about mindfulness, learning about meditation, we have to find other ways. Headspace is a great app that you have here with this particular card. You have 1 year free. And Headspace is an online tool that actually delivers a course in guided meditation in these little bite-sized pieces. Also on your resource list, there's other apps that you might consider as well. And as you've already seen today, Susan has put together an excellent program for adolescents, Change to Chill. This one is for parents, for people 18 and older. You also have just a little card for a micro practice, take a breath meditation. So please take those things on your way out. That's mindfulness in a nutshell. It is being here right now. That's what it is, without judgment. It's a skill, but it leads to a way of life. A way of life that is richer, has more meaning, is more stable, and I would posit is happier. That's a funny word, but many people say over time they have increased the quality of their lives doing these practices. So explore a little bit with yourself in these practices and see what it does for you. Mindfulness is powerful, powerful medicine. As an adjunct to, if you currently have a condition, cancer, high blood pressure, whatever it is, and you're currently taking medication, or you're currently under medical care, mindfulness doesn't replace that, but it can be very additive. It's participatory medicine. It's self-driven medicine. It's something that you can do. So thank you very much, and thank you, Amy.